call upon the clerk to please read the amendment into the record.
Resolution number 2015-0116, a resolution providing for the submission to the electors of the County of Cuyahoga an amendment to Article 11, Section 11.01 of the Charter of Cuyahoga County to ensure the independence of the auditing function by providing that the County Audit Committee consist of the President of Council and 4 residents of the county with experience in the field of auditing who are to be appointed by the County Executive and confirmed by Council, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilman Greenspan is the prime sponsor of the amendment, and I would call upon him to present the amendment to the council.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment is similar in context to the amendment that we placed on the ballot last year regarding further making the Audit Committee more independent. The change between this piece of legislation and the one that this council adopted unanimously last year to be placed on the ballot is that the composition of the Audit Committee, which is the primary change in this piece of legislation to last year, instead of it being the, as it's currently written in the charter, the fiscal officer as chair, the county executive as a member, the council president, 2 members of the public, this changes the composition to be the council president or his or her designee and 4 residents of the county with experience in auditing, accounting, government operations, and financial reporting. Other than that, the amendment itself is substantially the same as last year. There is a substitute that has been brought forward, and the substitute, I'll make a motion to enter that into the record. Merely changes the ballot language. It does not change the substance of the charter amendment the proposed charter amendment as I just explained. So if I can, Mr. Chair, at this time, introduce the substitute.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the substitute as the version before the committee, as the sponsor noted. The exact wording of the amendment went through some changes in committee, and the purpose of the substitute is simply to align the ballot language with the wording of the amendment as currently constituted. Is there any further discussion on accepting the substitute as the version before the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the substitute say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the substitute is accepted.
Great, thank you. One other point, if I can, Mr. Chair, to point out in that additionally, the concern has been raised about the input of the fiscal officer and the executive insofar as participating in the audit committee discussions. Since those 2 positions are being removed from the audit committee, they will be offered ex officio by this amendment, ex officio membership on the audit committee, meaning that they will have a voice but no vote.
Okay. Any questions or comments, Councilman Germana?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was one of the people that spoke up about keeping the executive and the fiscal officer as members until I was taught that it's an inherent conflict, and in auditing standards there should not be a person on an audit committee if there's a connection to the office in which they're auditing. So this putting them as ex officio, they should know what departments need help in auditing. So it makes sense to make them ex officio, but it meets the accounting standards because they're not part of the committee that's actually deciding by vote. So I think this compromise is, I'm very satisfied with it. I'd like to add my name as a sponsor.
Thank you very much. Any further comment? Go ahead, Ms. Conwell.
Through the chair, just wanted to ask a question. What was the, I know we've talked about this for many years. What was the position of the executive office on this?
I would call upon any of the administration. We did not hear any opposition to it expressed in the Operations Committee, but I would call upon any representatives of the administration at this time to comment on the proposed amendment.
I did discuss it with the executive after it was brought forward. He does not have an objection to the proposed language. I think it meets all the requirements. I think this was discussed by the internal auditors. It was also discussed by, I believe, the new appointee to the audit committee, Mr. Seamus. The executive's aware. I think it satisfies all the requirements that it's an independent committee, but yet the executive, as well as the fiscal officer, will have a full participation, a full voice, in the discussions, but also keeping it independent. So the executive does not have an objection as to the proposed substitute language.
And Mr. Chair, just as a further clarification or to this point, and we have our internal auditor and fiscal officer here to address it, but as well, yesterday, as my colleagues are aware, the executive and I spoke before the before the editorial board, and they asked the question specifically about this charter amendment due to one of the items that that the fact that the credit balance and the capital accounts have been going on for so long, and the executive stated yesterday as well that he has no opposition to this legislation.
Okay. Council President Brady.
I'm just pleased. I have to admit I was uncertain when this was first raised to go back to the ballot with this, but I'm pleased we're doing it. I'm confident we were right the first time. It was the one amendment that did not pass. The previous executive did oppose it, and the newspaper opposed it as well. Not much else happened with it, so one has to assume that that's the major reason that it went down at that time. So I'm glad that we're revisiting this, and I think we're going to be successful this time.
Any other comment? If not,
we do. I don't know if the internal auditor or fiscal officer had any additional comments.
I can certainly answer any questions that you have.
okay. Well, then the amendment, after being heard by the Operations and Intergovernmental Committee, was referred back to the council and had its second reading, and then was referred to the committee of the whole here. So if we report it, we could report it for third reading, and it could be voted upon at the next council meeting on August 11th. So I would entertain a motion to move it forward in that way.
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? Yes.
I just had a couple questions for the auditor. Through the chair, how many are on the committee? How often does the committee meet?
Well, the committee right now sits with 5 people. Okay. It's the 2 residents, the executive, the fiscal officer, and council president. By charter, we're to meet quarterly. We did not meet the first quarter of this year because of the transition, and the transition we didn't have a fiscal officer in place. We have met for the second quarter, and we're ready to schedule our third quarter meeting.
Okay, so this amendment would take the executive and the fiscal officer off. Who will replace them? I know they'll still be on, but they won't be able to vote.
Well, that would be up to, I think what comes forward is the executive brings nominations to council for their confirmation, and that would not happen until after the amendment passed. So for our next probably 2 meetings, they would still sit on in their positions.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, we have a motion and a second to refer Resolution 2015-0116 as substituted favorably to the full council for third reading at the August 11th meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the resolution is so recommended.
Thank you. Councilman? Any miscellaneous business? Hearing none. Any public comment unrelated to the agenda?
No, Mr. President.
All right. I move that we adjourn the committee of the whole. It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Committee of the whole is adjourned. We will be back at 5 o'clock. Didn't take us quite as long as we thought it might.